we need to focus on our weaknesses right now. You start there, and let's look at what we can do. Let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this community right now. Let's talk about Covington, Newton County, and let's talk about Mansfield and New Bern and Oxford and Salem Road area. What do we need to work on right now in our community?
And I'm taking a lot of this in. It's all very interesting. And if I understand it, I'm not in law enforcement, never have been. Community policing is not just the badge and the gun that shows up. It is a social worker, community worker that you're working to get to know each other basically, and you happen to have a badge and a gun. And so I think that's very interesting. You also differentiated between reactive, that's you got a 911 call, you got to go, and proactive. How do you keep from having the 911 calls? If you're proactively working in your community, that's probably a good way to do it. If I were to look at what I'll call challenges from my perspective on the reactive side, fortunately, and I'm rural, I live out away from civilization, but the few times that I have had an emergency, the response was, it was great once they got there, but had it been a medical issue, burglary, armed burglary, anything that was really dangerous, I wouldn't measure success in hours to respond, I would measure it in minutes. And my personal experience is it's been hours, not minutes. So I don't know the fix to that, but if you can fix reaction time, then you start to develop confidence in public safety. And I think this is probably the difference between heading a law enforcement organization and being the feet on the street. The feet on the street have to react and do it properly. The heads of law enforcement need to be strategically the ones figuring out the community policing, the community relations, what do we do that in the next 5 years can really make a difference. I see it as two real different skills. It's that strategic supervisory, and I would add one other thing that I think encompasses what's being discussed. I am a huge fan of transparency across the board when it's the public. So in terms of law enforcement, granted, there are always going to be issues of an ongoing investigation or whatever, that's got to be private. I think public information and being held to account by the public is a good thing. We all benefit by that. So that would be one thing as a citizen that would make me feel a whole lot better.
You touched on two really key points that I'd like to elaborate a little bit on. First of all, let's go back to transparency. That is imperative. If we're trying to build trust, if we're really focused on building trust within the community, we have to be transparent and we have to respond quickly to concerns, to questions. Body cameras, what we're starting to see in law enforcement, the trend now, instead of saying, well, this is still under investigation, and body cameras video being released, sometimes weeks later, you're seeing it being released sometimes the same day as when it was collected. I'm a fan of that. I think that we need to get information out as quickly as possible to our public, even though it can be uncomfortable, and you may be showing something that it doesn't portray your department in the best light. It's the honest answer to their question. This is what happened. Here's the video, to show, and that builds trust, especially when you follow up with, hey, we could have done a better job at this. This was a mistake. This was not handled correctly. That helps build trust, within the community. Going back to your concern about response times, this is a platform item for me. This is something I've discussed from the beginning. Is we've got to enhance our response times. That has got to happen. I've been all over this county and talked to hundreds of people, and a common theme is I called 911 and I waited forever, and 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, for somebody to respond. The public deserves better. And so there has to be, from a leadership perspective, a reallocation of manpowers. The The backbone of your law enforcement organization, any law enforcement organization, is your frontline first responding officer. So for a sheriff's department or a police department, that is your patrol division. You have got to staff that group first. They have to have everything they need to be successful, and that is a number of officers, a number of deputies working in areas of your city or your county where you know the call volume is going to be there. You know, history shows you where the calls are going to come from. You can predict where calls are going to come from, and you've got to have proper staffing. And that is something that can be done with existing manpower. You take a look at what you got, and then you make sure that that's your first priority, is those folks are positioned to where they can respond quickly. And then you've got to recruit. And we are going into uncharted territory with recruitment of law enforcement personnel. There are a number of law enforcement officers all over this country that are stepping away from this profession right now. And so that's a new added challenge for every leader. And I feel like that's something that has been one of my strong suits over the years, is just being able to, maybe my passion for the job. They hear it when I talk to them, and I try to convince them that this is such a wonderful career to consider. But that's going to be challenged, from here on out. It's going to become more and more difficult to get the quality personnel that we want. This is going to be difficult.
So with that being said, in terms of with your recruitment strategies and things like that, do you think moving forward that, I'm not sure within our county or other areas, is it something that could be missing in terms of the quality of law enforcement officers, or maybe is it, as you said, a career? Some people, not some people.